Hey, what's up, Mavs fans? Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on 97.1 The Freak. Appreciate you joining me here for the latest minisode of Inside The Mavs presented by Aura. You can find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to download and subscribe to the Inside The Mavs podcast on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And you can also find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. And make sure you subscribe to the channel here if you're watching it here on my YouTube channel. Mavericks get the 109-99 win over the Golden State Warriors for their fourth consecutive win, as the Mavericks since February the 5th are now 12-5 during that span. The only two teams with a better record during that span are the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets. So the Mavericks playing some terrific basketball right now, especially over their last 17 games, which included a 7-game win streak. We saw that dip where they lost 5 of 6, but now they've come back to win 4 straight after beating the Golden State Warriors by 10. No Stephen Curry, no Draymond Green. And, of course, the big news coming out of the game against Golden State as the Mavericks get ready to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder on Thursday night is that Luka Doncic left the game midway through the fourth quarter with some left hamstring tightness. His status for the game on Thursday night still unknown at the time that we are recording this here. We'll have obviously updates when it comes to Luka as they come in on whether or not he will play on Thursday night and go from there. But at the same time, the Mavericks, their defense is what led them to another victory against the Golden State Warriors, as the Mavericks are now 2-0 this year against Golden State. And as you look at the Western Conference playoff standings, the more wins you can stack up against the teams that are in front of you and behind you, you're able to hopefully make up some ground in the West while keeping those teams behind you at bay. The Mavericks doing their part right now having won their second consecutive game against the Golden State Warriors. They still got 2 games left against Golden State before the end of the regular season. Still a couple of games left to go against Sacramento as well. We'll detail here in a little while what the Western Conference standings look like and what position the Mavericks are in as they look forward now to their final 16 games of the regular season. But an important win for the Mavericks, where I mentioned their defense was the thing that drove them in this game as they hold their second consecutive opponent to under 100 points. They held the Chicago Bulls to 92 points. Now they hold the Golden State Warriors to 99 points in the win on Wednesday. So the defense continuing to lead the way. And as you saw in the game, Daniel Gafford, who continues to be absolutely spectacular, piling on his NBA record for consecutive field goals made, was again perfect in the game on Wednesday, going another 5 for 5 from the field with 10 points. But more importantly, he had 7 blocks and 2 steals in this game as the Mavericks blocked 13 shots in the game. PJ Washington had another 3 blocks in this game. Dereck Lively II had a couple of blocks as well. It was the interior defense of Lively and Gafford that really was able to win the day for the Mavericks. And as you saw, the Golden State Warriors tried to get a little bit more physical with Luka Doncic, who didn't necessarily have a great shooting game, going just 7 of 18 from the field. But it was the interior scoring of the Mavericks that was able to dominate in this game. And as you look at the points in the paint, they scored 68 of their 109 points in the paint, and you saw a lot of it doing the damage in terms of dunks, whether it be Daniel Gafford, Dereck Lively II. And one of the things that I appreciated most about what the Mavericks did in that game against Golden State is that they were able to attack closeouts. They constantly found themselves getting to the rim and finishing out in transition in a game where you saw the Mavericks outscore Golden State 22-8 in fast break points, which was huge for them to be able to get out on the run. The Mavericks forcing 17 turnovers, scoring 21 points off of those turnovers, and that has been the hallmark of this team when they are defending, not only obviously on the perimeter, but when they're turning teams over and being able to convert on the fast break. That's when you see this team playing with the consistent pace to be able to put pressure on opposing teams, and they did exactly that against the Golden State Warriors in a game where, of course, Stephen Curry and Draymond Green were not available. Draymond Green was a late scratch as he was dealing with a back injury. But at the same time, when you look at the way that the game went down, the Mavericks saw a game of runs, especially in that first quarter, as the Mavericks were able to take a 16-9 lead after a 7-0 run in a minute and a half. The Golden State Warriors responded with a 9-2 run of their own to tie the game at 18. The Warriors then responded with a 7-0 run to take a 27-23 lead before Tim Hardaway Jr. eventually tied it at the end of the first quarter with a floater to be able to get things tied at 27 at the end of one. But you saw the constant cutting to the rim, the correct reads being made by Dereck Lively and Daniel Gafford, getting into the paint, being able to read off of Luka Doncic to be able to make things happen at the rim. Another thing that was constantly happening, whether it be alley-oops off a pick and roll or in transition, or obviously reading Luka and reading Kyrie Irving, who had 10 assists in the game, to be able to make things happen at the rim for the Mavericks. More on this game and what the Mavericks will need to do continuing going forward, and we'll take a look at the Western Conference standings and where the Mavericks stand as they get ready to take on Oklahoma City on Thursday and then the Denver Nuggets on Sunday. But before we get there, let's hear a word from today's sponsor of our video, and let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs. Appreciate you hanging out with me through that quick break, and thank you to our sponsor of today's video, in Aura. Before we went to break, detailing how things went down between the Mavericks and the Warriors on Wednesday night. As we mentioned, Luka Doncic had to leave the game midway through the fourth quarter with some left hamstring tightness. If he is not able to go, we will see how the Mavericks fare against the Oklahoma City Thunder, one of the best teams in the West. The Mavericks, of course, beat the Thunder in the middle of that 7-game win streak when they had that 35-point beatdown of OKC at the AAC as a part of the new acquisitions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, who were particularly good that day. Kyrie Irving may need to put on an extra special show in OKC if Luka Doncic is unavailable to make the trip, unable to go against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But more on that here in just a little bit. But as things went on, the Mavericks were able to take control of the game, especially in that second quarter. The Mavericks led at the end of the first half 48-42 as the Mavericks were able to use what was tied at 27 at the beginning of that second quarter, used a 7-2 run in the first 3 minutes of that second quarter to open up a 5-point lead. Overall, it was a 13-2 run to get the lead to 11. And as you saw it, Luka Doncic with a gorgeous Euro step was able to cap off that 11-2 run. Initially, Derrick Jones Jr. getting to the rim, again, cutting and attacking the rim off of closeouts. And that was something that I thought the Mavericks would be able to do with consistency throughout this game, was be able to attack the middle of that Warriors defense with no real interior presence to speak of. The Mavericks had an opportunity to dominate inside the paint, and that's exactly what they did. And defense turning into offense. There were multiple times in this game. You saw an example of that in the second quarter. Daniel Gafford with a block on one end, leading to a PJ Washington dunk on the other end. That is when this team is at their best, being able to defend on one end and then get out in transition and to finish with authority on the other end. And you saw that multiple times throughout the course of this game. And I thought was one of the hallmarks and one of the real stamps on this game was the Mavericks defense on the interior, led by Daniel Gafford, who continues to be spectacular in the starting lineup. The Mavericks now 6-0 when Daniel Gafford is in the starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. And you're seeing how comfortable Dereck Lively is coming off the bench. The Mavericks don't have to change their style of play because you've got Daniel Gafford and Dereck Lively with similar games, but obviously for Lively continuing to grow and learn during his rookie year. And if you listen to my conversation that I had with Daniel Gafford in the latest full episode of Inside the Mavs, you talked about the connection that the two of them are having and how both of them are helping each other be able to play well for the Mavericks, and the Mavericks were able to do so. Daniel Gafford having 3 blocks in that second quarter, dominating on the defensive end, which really set the tone throughout the course of the game. And then you get to the second half, Gafford again continuing to set the tone on both ends of the floor, especially on the offensive end, scoring the first 6 points of that third quarter for the Mavericks, as the Mavericks were able to take a 54-49 lead 3 minutes into the quarter, and they were able to lead by 6 at the end of 3, as Luka Doncic was able to knock down a three-pointer after scoring 8 straight points for the Mavericks to give them a 7-point lead. The Mavericks were able to really take control of things. Daniel Gafford at one point making his 32nd consecutive field goal in the third quarter. Again, another example of a block on one end leading to a Dante Exum three-pointer in transition on the other end. Good defense turning into quick offense as far as the Mavericks were concerned. And, of course, they would go on in that fourth quarter to open up a lead at 18 points and then go on to win by 10. So you saw the Mavericks in this game not shoot the 3 ball well, which is something over the last 4 games during their 4-game winning streak they haven't necessarily done well, but what they've been doing is defending. And when this team has put together a mindset to defend night in and night out, you saw it during the 7-game win streak, a team that was second in the NBA in defensive rating during that 7-game win streak. When they lost 5 of 6, they were dead last in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. Now getting back to that consistency on the defensive end. And they know that it's not going to be perfect every single night, but what they can control is their effort and energy on the defensive end, and they were able to use that as an example. But more importantly, the game plan worked out very well for this team, and that's something that when you're looking at Jason Kidd and the adjustments that he's got to make going forward to try and help this team climb into hopefully the top 6 of the West, what kind of game plans are being put forward to be able to attack teams as far as their weaknesses are concerned. And the weakness in this game against Golden State is no interior presence and the ability to attack off closeouts and be able to get to the rim and finish with authority with and ones, but also being able to finish with dunks and layups at the rim. Kyrie Irving and his passing was spectacular throughout the game, whether it be finding Josh Green for an alley-oop in transition. Kyrie Irving's decision-making with the basketball as far as his passing was concerned, I thought was very, very good in this game. The Mavericks having 30 assists on the night as well. So you saw the sharing of the basketball, but more importantly, the efficiency at which they shot the ball, as in this game, of course, they shot nearly 54% from the field, only shooting 22% from 3. And that's something that as you look at this team, are they finding different ways to win games? If the 3 ball is not going down, normally that spells disaster for the Mavericks. But in this game, the 3 ball wasn't going down, but they found a way to find other ways to score, and that was definitely at the rim, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. 68 points in the paint, 68 of their 109 points in the paint. So there was a winning formula for them that they discovered throughout the course of the game against the Golden State Warriors. And I mentioned 13 blocks, 6 steals, creating havoc on the defensive end. That is something that the Mavericks, from a mindset standpoint, can continue to take with them. And as we look at it now going forward, as far as the Western Conference standings are concerned, now we get you an idea of where they are in terms of that Western Conference picture as it stands going into the game on Thursday night against the Thunder. Again, the status of Luka Doncic not yet known yet on whether or not he will make the trip and play against Oklahoma City. For the sake of our conversation, if he does not play, the Mavericks are going to be playing a team in the Oklahoma City Thunder that's 45-20, sitting a half game behind the Denver Nuggets for the number 1 spot in the West. But for the Mavericks right now, 38-28, 10 games above 500 right now, are a half game behind the Sacramento Kings for the 6th spot in the West, and a game and a half behind the New Orleans Pelicans for the 5th spot in the West, as spots 5 through 10 right now are the Pelicans, Kings, Suns, Mavericks, Lakers, and then Warriors. Of course, the Suns at 38-27. Mavericks hold the tiebreaker over the Phoenix Suns. Sacramento currently holding the tiebreaker right now as they've won the first 2 games of their season series against the Dallas Mavericks. Mavericks have a chance to even that up as they have 2 more games left against Sacramento before season's end. And, of course, the Pelicans sitting there at number 5, a game and a half ahead of the Mavericks. So as much winning as the Mavericks have done throughout the course of their last 17 games, as we've detailed, third best record over the past 17 games since February the 5th. They are right now still in 8th at 38-28, but they are closing in on both Phoenix and Sacramento and trying to get themselves in to that top 6. They would need to finish right now 12-4 over their last 16 games to be able to get to that 50-win threshold. And I'm looking at possibly them getting to that 47 to 49 win mark, but they've got to find a way to try and beat Oklahoma City. It may be obviously a much tougher task without Luka Doncic in that game, assuming that he's not going to play. If he is, we will see how much he is able to go and what he's able to exert in that game against the Thunder. But at the same time, the Mavericks have put themselves in a good position. And going into the game on Wednesday, I said we're going to find out a lot more about this team over the next 3 games against Golden State, against Oklahoma City, and obviously against the reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets on Sunday. Off to a good start for this team now, having won their 4th straight game, getting the win against the Golden State Warriors. Now get ready for the second night of a back-to-back, their home road back-to-back against the Oklahoma City Thunder before they come home on Sunday. They'll have a couple of days off on Friday and Saturday before they take on the Denver Nuggets. You'll need those 2 days off if you're the Dallas Mavericks before you take on Nikola Jokic and Denver. So another good, solid win for the Mavericks. Defense leading this team. This team will have to continue to lean on that throughout the rest of the season. If Luka Doncic is able to go, he will have to be a little bit better on the defensive end. You saw some breakdowns from him in terms of guys going behind him with backdoor cuts and not necessarily being in the mode where he needed to be as far as positioning was concerned to make things happen. But you saw his teammates, Dereck Lively, PJ Washington, whose defense continues to be excellent for this team, be able to make up for some of that on the back end. Daniel Gafford, another 7 blocks, continues to be a top 10 blocks guy in the NBA. And you saw how much more of a presence and a force he is in the middle as what he's not only doing at the rim, finishing at the rim, but more importantly on the defensive end for these Mavericks. So the Mavericks, as I mentioned, 38-28 now, 10 games above 500. Get ready to take on Oklahoma City on Thursday. If Luka Doncic isn't going to go, it's going to be on Kyrie Irving, PJ Washington, Tim Hardaway Jr., and others to really try to put pressure on Oklahoma City from a scoring standpoint. If Doncic is able to go, things obviously will flow through Luka and Kyrie, with hopefully the defense on the back end dealing with a hyper-athletic team in the Oklahoma City Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what he's able to do before they take on the Denver Nuggets at home on Sunday. So Mavericks playing some good basketball right now. I'm sure for us watching this team, a lot more enjoyable than what was taking place during that 5 or 6 game stretch where the Mavericks had lost 5 of those 6 games, but now getting rolling again, hopefully getting off of that roller coaster and seesaw that they had been on over the last month or so in terms of the play, but now having won 4 straight games. That'll do it for this minisode of Inside the Mavs, again, presented by Aura. My name is Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on 97.1 The Freak on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. You can find me every single Mavericks radio broadcast as the pre- and post-game host, and, of course, host of the Inside the Mavs podcast. Wherever you get your podcast for free, give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. It is the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak. We'll have updates when it comes to Luka Doncic. You can follow me on Twitter for those updates when it comes to Luka Doncic, and we will go from there. Again, my name is Kevin Gray, host of Inside the Mavs. We'll talk to you later. Have a great day.